or $9.63. What? Your husband is out there and he is experiencing the same price inflation that you are. Go and God be with you. So be careful who you let into your season, because chances are he is out there living his best life and you inside with a box of Oreos and cookies. Who gonna fight me? Where are you? Send your best person out. A gap in your life between the anointment and the appointment. I'll tell you exactly what I did in those moments to redirect my thoughts. When you know full and well you have no business doing that, okay? You know, and I'm not messing with him anymore. If he calls me, I'm blocking him, and that emotion will fade away. A guy would approach me and he'd be interested. The issue is always, oh, you're celibate. Like you're for real celibate. You know what I mean? Where do I begin with this? You're lonely and you're desiring marriage. Always a bridesmaid and never the bride. I was in the trenches. All right, see ladies, let me just start by saying that this is a topic that is highly requested within the GLC community. So I hear you. Many of you are like, look, we are not at that place where we have the healthy marriage and, the children and all, and you are still in the dating scene, in the courtship scene. It's a struggle. Trust me, I get it, because long before I was happily married, I was definitely in the trenches. And I say that with no reservation. I was in the trenches. As women of God, as Christian women, especially when you're trying to honor God with your dating life, with your courtship, with your body, it's not always easy. This specific chat is for someone who is going through heartbreak. Whether you caused the heartbreak, somebody else broke your heart, whether it was a mutual separation, it doesn't matter. This chat is all about heartbreak. And my hope, my prayer is that you will be encouraged, and also that you'll be inspired on how you can handle this season in a more healthy way. And even if you're not in a breakup situation, but you're lonely and you're desiring marriage, that can be a long, painful and lonely journey, especially when it's something that is heavy on your heart and you see everyone else on social media getting married and you feel like you're always a bridesmaid and never the bride. Lady, we're chatting all about it today. So even if this is not for you, I'm sure there's someone in your circle that could benefit from today's chat. So go ahead right now and share this episode. Hey lady, welcome back to your new favorite talk show for Christian women, Grown Lady Chat. I'm your host, Dr. Sharonda Simone, and here in the GLC community, we chat about growth and development for Christian women. Hey lady, are you a woman who loves the Lord and who also enjoys beautiful things? Well, if you are, then you are personally invited to join my exclusive Christian women's group. In this group, we chat about clothes, beauty, home decor, parenting, marriage, cooking, and of course, our Christian walk. It's Christian lifestyle all-encompassing. So be sure to join by clicking the link below. I hope to chat with you soon. Now back to our show. Welcome back to all of the ladies who continue to tune in Mondays and Thursdays for new episodes. Thank you very much. I see you. I appreciate you. And if it's your first time tuning in, welcome. Make sure you drop in the comments and let me know. That way I can give you a proper welcome. Also, don't forget, ladies, that I'm still doing my random giveaways. All right. So if you want to be entered into the random giveaways, the best way to do that is to show up through commenting down below. Of course, subscribe to the channel. Let me know that you are here. You can even join my email community, which is a thriving, growing community as well. Join the email community. The link is always down below, and just show up. The more involved you are in the GLC community is the more you're going to get from this community. Where do I begin with this? Ladies, when we're talking about heartbreak, the first thing is to realize that what God has for you is for you. And I know that sometimes it's hard to see that, especially when you are waiting to be found by your Boaz. Many years I was waiting to be found, especially when it came to college time. College and beyond, I was definitely trying to position myself to be found by my Boaz, but I came in contact with every other, okay? And it's not like I was really out there heavy. However, I had made a decision when I was very young that I was going to be celibate. And It wasn't, a big deal when I was younger, but as I got older, college and beyond, I realized like, oh, this is going to pose another layer of difficulty in my whole experience when it came to like dating and all. And that's why I shifted gears very early from dating to courtship, because when you are courting, my understanding is that the whole purpose is to be married. It's not just to get to know each other and have fun, YOLO. It's really to say, okay, I see you, you see me, and we are going to intentionally get to know each other. And the purpose is because we're going to get married. And so when I met my now husband, we began with courtship in mind. And I don't believe we ever verbalized it, at least not initially. It was more so when we met, we knew there was a connection. I was praying for him, as in I was praying on behalf of my husband. I was actively praying for my husband daily. Even before I knew his name, I knew where he was. And my husband was also praying for me, looking for me, journaling about me. And so when we met, it was like, aha, everything just came together wonderfully. And it was very organic. And so we began to early on in our relationship talk about marriage. But prior to that, that was not the case. Okay. Again, being celibate, that was something that just seemed like a big hurdle. Every time I would, chat with someone, or a guy would approach me and he'd be interested, the issue was always, oh, you're celibate. Like you're for real celibate. You know what I mean? That was such a big factor. Now, I do understand the factor of intimacy, physical intimacy in a marriage. I understand why it's important. But what I'm saying is it broke my heart and made me feel rejected many times, because they were like, you're really cool, but not cool enough for me to, overlook this celibacy thing and then wait till marriage, and I'm like, okay, but there's so much more to me. That's an added bonus, but there's so much more to me. And so I had, little heartbreaks throughout. And I remember when I came to a point where I was like, you know what? I can't go on like this, feeling like there's something wrong with me because I'm trying to honor God with, my body. And so I had to make a mental switch. And sometimes, hear me, ladies, when you're going through heartbreak of whatever capacity, or when you're feeling rejected for whatever reason, it's easy for us to, in those moments of emotion, high, intense emotion, for us to make these, ultimatums. I'm not talking to him anymore, and I'm not messing with him anymore. If he calls me, I'm blocking him. And you make all of these grand just assertions and declarations, and you put your foot down. I'm not doing it. You block every number, you cancel out social media, and you do that with emotion behind it, not a logical decision. And here's what I've realized, that if you do those ultimatums, if you make those, hardcore decisions, and it's purely based on emotion because he rejected you, or because, he doesn't want to continue on with you, or maybe because you realize he was wasting your time and you're angry at him, and so now you know what, you lied to me for 2, 3, 4 years and I'm over you, and you're angry. It's all about emotion. It's all about the hurt, the pain, the frustration. Whatever emotion is behind that, that emotion will fade away. It will pass. You'll get over it. And when you get over it, then comes the, oh, well, maybe I can call him. Maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe we can try again. Maybe I can, save him. And no, ladies. So what I've learned is that when you are truly going to make a decision to move beyond hurt, especially when it comes to heartbreak, you have got to make the decision logically. Because if you make it emotionally, that emotion is going to fade. There's going to come a song on the radio that will play, and it will remind you of your first date. There's going to come, a dish that you eat at a restaurant that, you two used to share or talk about. There's going to be, a fragrance that you smell, maybe a cologne, and you're like, oh my gosh, I remember he used to wear that fragrance. And so it brings you back into those sweet, positive, the wonderful times, the good old days. And you begin to think, well, maybe I could give this another shot, when you know full and well you have no business doing that. Okay. You don't need a bunch of signs and a bunch of, gurus telling you that. No, lady, you already know you're supposed to move on. God has shut the door. You continue to try and pry it open. But I digress. So the first thing I would say, if you're going through like a heartbreak situation, make the decision to walk away logically. So don't wait until you've been rejected, you've texted and called and he hasn't answered the phone, and that's why you're now going to not mess with him. No, he's already rejected you. So you saying no when he's already rejected you is off of emotion. You need to do it on your terms and make it a logical decision. Realize you are the daughter of God, right? So this is where our biblical wise or wisdom mindset comes in. You are God's daughter. And while, you are still working on yourself and you're not perfect, and maybe you didn't do everything right, and maybe you should have, stopped talking to him months ago, years ago, because you saw the red flags, but you decided to overlook them. Whatever the situation is, you're here now, right? You're here right now. And so I want for you to remember who you are in the Lord. And that's another thing. The next thing is that I realized, and again, this is something you can take even to other situations and experiences, not just romantic breakups. But let's say you're in a work environment or an employee environment, and they are continuing to overlook the expertise that you bring to the table, and you're feeling rejected, you're feeling overlooked, you're feeling taken advantage of. You need to remember who you are in the Lord. And this reminds me of 1 Samuel 17, the story of David, right? So David and Goliath, many of us are familiar with David and Goliath. However, I look at David and Goliath in a relationship perspective, and it totally changes everything when it comes to my mindset with who I am in God. The enemy is very good about trying to show us all our flaws and weaknesses, and people around you are very quick to show you how unworthy they think you are, okay? How unworthy they think you are. Remember, you're not, but they think you are. Or maybe, again, you've made mistakes and you're looking and you're saying, Dr. Sharonda, but it was my fault. I knew he wasn't good enough. I knew that he wasn't the man that God had for me. I was being disobedient, and here I am now. And so you're beating yourself up. Look, guess what? You made a mistake, lady. But are you still breathing? Are you still alive? Is today a new day? So move with that. Okay, move with that understanding. Don't let Satan and people and your past failures hold you back from what God has for you, because he is still moving on your behalf. Your husband is alive. If you are watching this episode right now, let me just tell you, if you're watching this episode and you're of a certain age, your husband is alive. He, in this moment, whenever you are watching this episode, whether it's 2 years from now, your husband is alive. He is breathing. He is walking around this world. He is buying eggs and groceries just like you. He is going to the gas station just like you. So don't think as though you're trying to, pray up a whole new person from the earth who hasn't even been formed yet. No, he's out there. Okay, so fix your eyes on that, not on the foolishness of the past. Fix your eyes on the future, the Boaz that God has for you, because he's there. All right, and I'll tell you a few things that I used to do when I was in my single season to help pull myself out of that negative space, that sadness, that loneliness, that despair, that hopelessness. I'll tell you exactly what I did in those moments to redirect my thoughts. Ladies, did you hear? The GLC community is having our national conference in-person event this July 18 and 19 in Thomasville, Georgia. You'll see here some of the topics that are on the agenda. We're going to have dynamic speakers. We're going to have a panel discussion as well as breakout sessions. So regardless of your season in life, you will be blessed. The theme for this conference is Navigating Seasons with God. Trust me, I have put a lot of prayer and intention. I've been working with my lovely team, and we're getting together some good information for you, as well as some really impactful speakers, so that we can make sure that we all leave with a better understanding how we can go through life seasons with God. Alrighty, so we read in 1 Samuel 17 the story of David and Goliath. Ladies, we know about King David, right? We know King David, he had some issues. He had some flaws. Once he got on that throne, King David showed his tail. But one thing about it, and two things for sure, David knew who he was in the Lord. And when you read the Psalms where he was crying out to God and he knew that he had messed up, jacked up because he made some bad choices, he still went back to God with boldness and with just an open petition heart saying, God, I'm sorry, forgive me. He knew who he was in the Lord. He was confident in that. So you too, even if you've made some errors, even if you have not honored God in your dating and relationship, you still need to go to God with humility, repent. That means make a 180, do something different next time. But you need to go boldly to the Lord, because guess what? He loves you. He loves adulterers. He loves those who sin in, flesh. He loves us all. Okay. So don't let Satan keep you from getting that which God has for you because you've made some mistakes. Now, are there consequences? Yes, there are consequences of our choices, but don't let Satan keep you in the consequence and prevent you from your blessing. Okay. So we're looking at David. Now, remember, before David was appointed as king, he was anointed first. And there were years between when he was anointed as king and when he was actually appointed to king. So there is going to be a season. And maybe you're in that season right now where you're like, God, I know what you told me. I know that you said I'm a daughter of the king. I know that you have my wonderful husband waiting. And I know that I'm going to be a good wife because I'm working on myself. Okay, David was out there working on himself. Why? We'll see in just a moment. But David, remember, he was one who tended the sheep. He was good looking. He was young, but he was also very, petite in stature for a man. But he was out there doing his work. Even though he was anointed to be king one day, he was still out there in the fields doing personal development. Okay, he was strengthening himself. He was sitting out there taking care of what we would consider, a humble situation, taking care of the sheep and protecting them from wolves and lions and bears. He was doing all of that, even though he had already been anointed to be king. So many times we know that God, you want for us to have this certain kind of life and marriage with children, the white picket fence, all of that. And you know that it's coming, but you're still in a season where you haven't been appointed yet to that position. It hasn't manifested through God in your life yet. There will be many times a gap in your life between the anointment and the appointment. So if you are in that season, take heart. Think about David, okay? So David, here he is. He's petite. He's small, he's been anointed, but he hasn't been appointed. And there is a war going on between the Israelites and the Philistines. Go read it for yourself. This war is going on. Well, there is this big giant, okay? The Bible describes him as massive. The shield and the armor that he wore was, 5,000 pounds or something like that? I mean, some crazy amount of weight that this giant was able to carry on him. And the Bible describes him as really massive and huge. And so he was teasing, for lack of a better word, he was teasing and taunting the Israelites every day for 40 days during this war. Goliath would come out in the morning and he would say basically, who gonna fight me? Where are you? Send your best person out. Israelites, come. Somebody come beat me. And every day for 40 days, the Israelites were like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Even the king of Israel said, look, if somebody goes out there and takes this giant down, I will give you money. I will give you wealth. I think he'll even give one of his daughters, as a wife. So he's like, look, whoever can take care of Goliath, please go do so, because we're out here getting our tails whooped. So for 40 days, they were being taunted. Well, David gets sent by his father with some food for his brothers, because his brothers were big and strong and strapping. So they're out fighting, right, against the Philistines. So David goes and, he takes his little lunch sack for his brothers and he goes to give a report, because the father wants to know what's happening, with the war. We know that we're getting our tail whooped and there's this big Goliath, but what's happening with your brothers? So David goes out there, and here's where it gets interesting. Okay. So if we read verse 25, so 1 Samuel 17, verse 25. Actually, here, let's go to 20. So early in the morning, David left the flock in the care of a shepherd, loaded up and set out as Jesse had directed. So his father told him to do this. His father was Jesse. He reached the camp as the army was going out to its battle positions, shouting the war cry. Israel and the Philistines were drawing up their lines facing each other. David left his things with the keeper of supplies, ran to the battle lines and asked his brother how they were. As he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, stepped out from his lines and shouted his usual defiance, and David heard it. Whenever the Israelites saw the man, they all fled from him in great fear. Now the Israelites had been saying, "Do you see how this man keeps coming out? He comes out to defy Israel. The king will give great wealth to the man who kills him. He will also give his daughter in marriage and will exempt his family from taxes in Israel." Let me tell you something. The way taxes are set up right now, yeah, who gonna fight him? Who's gonna take care of this man? Because if this Goliath is killed, and the person who killed him is like a man in my family, oh yeah, I want that tax break. Okay, so the king is trying everything in his power to take Goliath out. So here David is in verse 26. David asked the men standing near him, "What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" Let me tell you something. Ladies, that is the question that you have to ask yourself. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine? Ladies, ask yourself, who is this person that you are pining over and worrying about? Because chances are he is out there living his best life and you inside with a box of Oreos and cookies. Okay, being unhealthy and crying. I'm not saying there's not a time to weep and a time to be sad, but there's also a time to blow your nose, put the cookies away, get out some carrots, and get to work. Okay, so when David was asking this question, he was very specific in his description of Goliath. He didn't say, who is this big, strong man, who can take out half of this, this army. He said, no, who is this uncircumcised Philistine? And that title equated to whatever negative connotation you would use in this day and age. Like, who does he think he is? In Pato would say, oh, who that? Oh, who he think same be? Boy, go on with yourself. All right, pretty much, what? Who are you? Who is this person? When he used the phrase uncircumcised Philistine, he was basically saying there's a separation between Israelites and Philistines, God's people and the people who have rejected God. And there's a spiritual separation. So you over there worried about this person who has no covenant with God. I don't care how big he is. I don't care how strong he is. I don't care how scary he is, how much power he seems to have. He is an uncircumcised Philistine. The person you're worrying about, they are not in the same covenant with God as you are. And I'm not saying this because he does not love the Lord. I don't know this person, you know him. But I'm saying he doesn't have a covenant with God regarding you. Because if he did, it would work out. Okay? So his covenant with God, if he has one, it does not include you. So why are you worrying about it? Yes, tough love today. Tough love. Ask, who is this uncircumcised Philistine? Who is this person I'm over here stressing about not eating for or overeating for? Okay, so verse 27, they repeated to him what they had been saying and told him, this is what will be done for the man who kills him. Okay, so now David's wheels are turning. They're turning. When Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him talking with the men, he burned with anger at him and asked, why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You only came down to watch the battle. Now, let me tell you, clearly, David and his brothers, they had some sibling rivalry issues, okay? And we already know, if you read further in the Bible, we know that David had some problems, absolutely. But again, you keep reading, David also knew who he was in God. And then we don't even know, like, was he just, hating on his brother? Like, why are you so angry? I'm here asking questions like everybody else. And so again, I want you to realize that sometimes the way you're feeling is because of the people's perception of you. But is it a true perception? Well, only you and God know. But you need to work on that. Don't let people speak over you and get angry at you just for you wanting to come out of your current season. Right? Misery loves company. And if you're around other women who are in a heartbreak or a lonely situation, a lonely season in life, chances are they don't want to see you do better than them. Some do, but most don't. So be careful who you let into your season. Be careful who you let see you cry. Be careful who you share your heart with, because sometimes they're burning with anger, they're burning with jealousy, because you're trying to move beyond and you're trying to work out the grief that you're dealing with. You're trying to become a better person. You're trying to work on yourself, and they want to keep you down in that sadness with them, because misery loves company. Well, David says, okay, he looks at his brother Eliab and he's like, well, now what have I done? Said David. Can't I even speak? He then turned away to someone else and brought up the same matter. Here's another point. Again, when you are talking about going through heartbreak and you're trying to better yourself and you're trying to move beyond, and maybe people around you who know you, they know your story, they are bearing witness to your heartbreak. They're bearing witness to your lonely season. You're telling them, hey, I'm trying to do better. And they're basically, for lack of a better phrase, saying, who do you think you are? Why do you think that you should deserve this when you clearly did not listen to God the first time when you saw those red flags? Or maybe you were just too enamored. We tried to warn you, and here you are trying to do better. Ladies, you see what David did? Now, I don't know why his brothers were so angry at him, okay? We know David wasn't perfect, but clearly Eliab was really angry. And what did David say? He said, well, geez, I can't even talk. And he went about his business and redirected his focus, because David already has a plan in mind. He's going to take down this Goliath. He's going to move beyond, right? He is going to save Israel from this embarrassment and this defiance, because there's this uncircumcised Philistine. So David already has a plan. His brother doesn't know it, but he can't be worried about him. He's trying to do what God has for him to do. Remember, he was appointed or anointed, but he has not yet been appointed. But God has already put in his path the plan. He knows where he's going to be eventually on the throne. And this is just another stepping stone to get there. All right. So you already know that God has anointed your life for marriage and for children. God has told you, he has given you this desire. This is the place where your heart is, but you haven't seen it manifest yet. Well, look, you still need to redirect your thoughts. Don't talk to people who are not on your same wavelength. If they don't see it, don't worry about them. You redirect to somebody else. You ask the questions you need to ask. You get the help you need to get in the Lord. Okay. So he then turned away and asked someone else, and the men answered him as before. What David said was overheard and reported to Saul. Okay, so Saul was the king, and Saul sent for him. David said to Saul, let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him. Now look, let me just stop here and say, we know what happens. David kills Goliath. He slings his stone, he hits Goliath in the head, and Goliath falls. David goes over, he beheads Goliath, he holds up Goliath's head, rah, rah, boom, bah. Goliath is dead, the giant is dead, okay? But before he got to that point, David still had to prove himself to the king. Here's how he did it. Saul replied to David, you are not able to go out against the Philistine and fight him. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth. But David said to Saul, your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of the Philistine. Saul said to David, go, and the Lord be with you. Lady, go, and the Lord be with you. In this moment, when you feel as though there's nothing more you can do because you are up against this uncircumcised Philistine, because your heart is broken and you're feeling rejected, dejected, because you're feeling lonely and abandoned, because you're looking for your Boaz and you want for him to find you. You've been on the threshing floor and yet he can't come and find you. Ladies, the Lord is telling you, keep working on yourself. Keep overcoming those moments of negativity and sadness. Keep pushing through. Why? Because God has already anointed you. And so you're just waiting for the appointment. Go and God be with you. Sometimes as we're going through these seasons and you're feeling lonely and all you can do, the best you can do is cry out to God or sob in your pillow. Trust me, I've been there. And in those seasons, I was getting closer to God. God was showing me how to overcome bears and lions and hurdles in whatever circumstance, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a work environment. Sometimes the same struggles that you are saying, God, I don't want to fight this anymore. I don't want to fight celibacy anymore. You really want to give in. So God is saying, no, I'm strengthening you for when you are going up against, this situation so that when you do or when you are found by your man, you have yourself to present.
Hey lady, are you a woman who loves the Lord and who also enjoys beautiful things? Well, if you are, then you are personally invited to join my exclusive Christian women's group. In this group, we chat about clothes, beauty, home decor, parenting, marriage, cooking, and of course, our Christian walk. It's Christian lifestyle all-encompassing. So be sure to join by clicking the link below. I hope to chat with you soon. Now back to our show.
Ladies, go. And the Lord be with you. I want for you too, the next time when you are feeling sad and lonely and, rejected, when you are saying, God, here I am, another day, another Valentine has passed, and I have nothing to celebrate in the way of romantic love. I want for you to think about what you can do in this season to prepare yourself for when you are found by your husband. Here are the things that I did. I'm going to tell you, this is just a few. Now, this is one of the topics that is going to be heavily talked about. We're going to have a specific breakout session for my single ladies, okay, at the GLC conference happening in July. All right, tickets are already being purchased, so make sure you grab your ticket because singlehood and other topics will be discussed. But I want to share with you a couple things that I did. It's not everything, but a couple things I did when I was going through my single season because it seems as though it was taking forever, okay, for my husband to find me. I was like, what were you out there doing all these years? Okay, anyway, God knew. The first thing I did, ladies, was that I would write letters to him. I got a journal and I would just write letters. Some of them were romantic, some of them were funny. I would write poems and it would just be, some of them actually rhymed, others, they were just musings from my heart. Another thing that I would do is I would actively pray for him, not pray for him to find me, not just that prayer, but pray on his behalf. I always tell my single friends, hey, your husband is out there and he is experiencing the same price inflation that you are. I was looking at our Instacart receipt and I was like, I told my husband, I said, babe, those eggs were $9.63. What? For a carton of eggs, 18 eggs? Are you serious? So guess what, ladies? Your husband right now in 2025, he is still dealing with that. Even though he has not put a ring on it, okay? He is still dealing with the same price inflation. Now, I don't know how it is in other countries, but in the US, all right? He's dealing with that. So pray for him. Say, you know what, Lord, let his money be long. Let his investments flourish in the name of Jesus, because when he flourishes, you flourish as well. All right. Pray for him. Pray for his health. Pray for his family. Pray for his friends. Pray for his strength. Pray for him. As a wife, you will be called to pray for your husband. I pray for my husband and I prayed for him even before I met him because he was alive before I met him. So it's not like you meet him one day and then he just becomes a whole person with a whole backstory and history. So pray for him. And in those moments when you're doing that, you're giving yourself peace and encouragement. You're inspiring yourself. You're taking your thoughts from the negative, loneliness, sadness, heartbreak, and you're redirecting it into the positive. I know God has my husband living. He's living right now here today. He is living, breathing. He is going through situations. Pray for him, cover him at his job, cover him with his friends and family. As he's driving down the road, pray for him. And you're saying, but I don't know who he is and how he looks. But do you believe that he exists? Yes. He must, because you're not a cradle robber, okay? So you're not praying for somebody who hasn't even been born yet, especially if you're of a certain age. Your husband is already alive. So take that sadness and turn it around and pray for your husband. Trust me, you do that, you will begin to immediately feel better. The Bible says that we should think on things that are lovely, true, just, of good report. Right? So we are to be thinking about things that are uplifting. But if you're so stuck, and trust me, I know where you are. I used to be there as well. And this is what I did to hold me over so that I wouldn't make silly mistakes and I wouldn't settle, because I knew that God has or had a man for me. Do we make mistakes? Absolutely. But don't settle, ladies. All is not lost. My mother used to always tell me it takes just one moment, just a moment like that, for you to meet the man that God has for you. And just as she said, so it was. In 2009, it took just one moment. We met and we never stopped talking since that first moment we met. So ladies, be encouraged. All righty, ladies, that is it for this episode. I really hope that you were blessed. I really hope that it helped you, whether you're in a season of heartbreak, whether you know someone who's in a season. Anytime you feel yourself thinking that you should pick up that phone and call him or text him, you're feeling lonely and you're trying to, say, who is this uncircumcised Philistine? No. No. And I'm not saying he's a bad person. Maybe he's a great person and you messed it up. But right now, he is not in covenant with God regarding you. Okay? That ship has sailed. And you need to let it sail on down the river. Okay? Focus on what God has for you. Focus on what God has for you, because even our mistakes, he said he will make our crooked path straight. So even though maybe you've had a crooked path or a crooked past, yes, there are consequences here on earth, but you focus on what God is and can do even when you have done wrong, in the name of Jesus. All righty, ladies, until Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Remember, I am Dr. Sharonda Simone, and I will either see you at the top or from the top. You decide. Bye.